My friends, look around you. What do you see? Maybe you are sitting in a room. Maybe you are walking on a sidewalk. Perhaps you are looking at a tall building that touches the clouds. We see these things every day, but have you ever stopped to wonder what they are made of? There is a material that is everywhere. It is under our feet. It is in our walls. It is the silent hero of our modern world. We call it concrete. To many people, concrete seems boring. It is just a gray, hard rock. It is cold and quiet. But I want you to look closer. Concrete is not just a rock. It is a kind of magic. Imagine a liquid, like thick soup, that can take any shape. You can pour it into a mold. Then it waits. It dries, and suddenly it becomes as hard as stone. We call this liquid stone. Without this material, our cities would not exist. We would not have our bridges to cross rivers. We would not have our safe homes to sleep in. It is the most used material in the world after water. Think about that for a moment. After water, we use concrete more than anything else. But where did it come from? Did we always have this magic liquid? The answer is a surprise. This story is not new. It is very, very old. It is a story of human dreams. It is a story of how we wanted to build things that last forever. It is a story of lost secrets and new discoveries. So, take a deep breath. Clear your mind. Let us go back in time together. Let us find the beginning of this silent foundation that holds up our world. We are now traveling back thousands of years. We are in a time before machines. We are in a time before computers. We are standing in the hot sands of the ancient world. When early humans wanted to build a home, they used simple things. They used mud. They used clay. They used wood. These materials were good, but they were not very strong. Rain could wash the mud away. Fire could burn the wood. Humans wanted something stronger. They wanted to imitate the mountains. In ancient Egypt, the builders were very smart. You know the pyramids, yes? Those giant triangles in the desert? To build the Great Pyramids, the Egyptians used a special mix. They used gypsum and lime. They heated these rocks to make a paste. It was not exactly the concrete we know today, but it was the grandfather of concrete. It helped the stones stick together. Far away in the east, another great civilization was building. The Chinese people were building the Great Wall. It is a wall so long, it looks like a dragon sleeping on the hills. Do you know what they used? They used something from their kitchen. They used sticky rice. Yes, the rice you eat. They mixed sticky rice soup with lime. This mixture was very sticky and very strong. It helped the Great Wall stand for hundreds of years. Further south, the Nabatean people in the desert, in modern-day Jordan, discovered something important. They found a special dust. When they mixed it with water, it became hard, even under the ground. They used it to build big tanks to hold water. This was very important in the dry desert. These ancient people were listening to the earth. They were testing. They were learning. But the true masters of this liquid stone were yet to come. The world was waiting for Rome. Now we move to the glorious time of the Roman Empire. The Romans were famous for their soldiers, but they were also the world's best builders. They changed the history of construction forever. The Romans created a material they called opus cementitium. This is a fancy Latin name, but we can just call it Roman concrete. What was their secret? It was a special dust. Near the city of Naples, there was a volcano named Mount Vesuvius. Around this volcano, the Romans found a red, sandy powder. They called it pozzolana. When they mixed this volcanic dust with lime, burned stone, and water, something amazing happened. Most mixtures need air to dry, but Roman concrete was different. It could get hard even when it was underwater. This was a revolution. It meant the Romans could build bridges across deep rivers. They could build harbors for their ships in the sea. Their concrete was incredibly strong. Because of this, they could build huge arches and domes. Have you ever seen a picture of the Pantheon in Rome? It is a temple for all the ancient gods. It has a giant dome, a round roof. The Pantheon is almost 2,000 years old, and guess what? It is still standing today. It is made of unreinforced concrete. That means there is no metal inside to hold it up. It is just pure Roman concrete. Imagine standing inside that temple 2,000 years ago. You look up at the ceiling and you feel safe. The Romans believed their empire would last forever, and because of their concrete, their buildings almost did. But history is like the tide of the ocean. It goes in and it goes out. The Roman Empire could not last forever, and when it fell, something terrible happened. My friends, this is the sad part of our story. Around the year 476 AD, the great Roman Empire fell. The cities were broken. The armies were defeated. We call the time that followed the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages. Why do we call it dark? It is because the light of knowledge became very dim. When the empire collapsed, people forgot how to do many things. The libraries were destroyed. The master builders died, and they did not teach their secrets to their children. The secret recipe for Roman concrete, the volcanic ash, the lime, the mixing, was lost. It simply disappeared. Can you imagine? For over 1,000 years, nobody in Europe knew how to make the liquid stone. Builders went back to the old ways. They used stone, they used brick, they used wood. These were good materials, but they were slow to use. To build a big cathedral or a castle, men had to cut heavy stones one by one. It took a very long time. Sometimes people would look at the old Roman ruins. They would look at the Pantheon or the aqueducts. They would scratch their heads and ask, how did they do this? What magic did they use? But there was no answer. The recipe was gone. The concrete was silent. It shows us something important about human history. Progress does not always go in a straight line. Sometimes we go forward. Sometimes we go backward. Knowledge is precious. If we do not protect it, we can lose it. For 10 centuries, 1,000 years, the world waited. The secret of concrete lay sleeping in the ruins of Rome. After a long sleep, the world began to wake up. This time is called the Renaissance. It means rebirth. People started to read old books again. They started to ask questions about science and nature. Slowly, very slowly, engineers began to look for the lost secret of the Romans. In the 1700s, there was a man named John Smeaton. He was an English engineer. He had a very difficult job. He needed to build a lighthouse. A lighthouse is a tall tower with a light to warn ships about dangerous rocks. He needed to build it on a rock in the middle of the ocean. The waves were strong. The wind was fierce. A normal wood or brick tower would not survive. He needed something stronger. He needed something that could harden underwater. Smeaton started to experiment. He acted like a cook in a kitchen. He tested different kinds of limestone. He discovered that if the limestone had some clay in it, it worked better. When he burned it, it made a strong powder. He used this new mix to build the Eddystone Lighthouse. It was a success. The lighthouse stood strong against the crashing waves. Smeaton had opened the door. He did not have the perfect recipe yet, but he was close. Other men started to try too. They realized that burning rocks, heating them to a very high temperature, was the key. The world was changing. Factories were starting to open. The Industrial Revolution was coming. The world needed to build faster and bigger. The stage was set for a man named Joseph Aspdin. The year was 1824. The place was England. Meet Joseph Aspdin. He was not a famous scientist. He was a bricklayer. He worked with his hands, but he had a clever mind. Joseph was experimenting in his kitchen. He took limestone from the roads and mixed it with clay. He burned this mixture in his stove until it was red hot. Then he ground it into a fine powder. When he mixed this powder with water, it became very hard. It was gray and strong. Joseph looked at his new stone. It reminded him of a famous building stone from the Isle of Portland in England. It was a high-quality, beautiful stone, so he gave his invention a name: Portland cement. This was a huge moment. Why? Because Joseph Aspdin created a recipe. Before this, builders just hoped their mix would work. But with Portland cement, it was consistent. If you buy a bag of Portland cement today, it is almost the same as the powder Joseph made. This invention was the fuel for the modern world. Suddenly, builders had a reliable material. They could make it anywhere. Factories started to produce tons of this cement. It was used to build tunnels under the River Thames. It was used to build sewers to keep cities clean. But there was still one problem. Concrete is very strong if you push it down, compression. But if you pull it or bend it, it can crack. It has low tension strength. Concrete needed a partner. It needed a friend to help it handle the stretching and bending. Imagine you are holding a cookie. If you press down on it, it is hard to crush, but if you snap it, it breaks. Concrete is like that cookie. It is great at holding weight, but terrible at bending. In the mid-1800s, a gardener in France named Joseph Meunier had a problem. He was making pots for orange trees. Meunier had an idea. He made a frame out of iron wire, like a bird cage. Then he poured concrete around the wire. The result was amazing. The pot did not break. The iron wire held the concrete together. The concrete protected the iron from rusting. They were the perfect team. The iron was strong when pulled, tension. The concrete was strong when pressed, compression. Together, they were unstoppable. We call this reinforced concrete. Reinforced means to make something stronger by adding support. Another French engineer, François Hennebique, saw this idea. He realized it wasn't just for flower pots. He figured out how to use steel bars inside beams and floors. This changed everything. Before reinforced concrete, buildings had to have thick walls. Now, they could be thin and elegant. The marriage of steel and concrete opened the door to the 20th century. The sky was now the limit. Welcome to the 1900s. The world was moving faster. Cars, airplanes, and concrete became king. Because of reinforced concrete, cities began to grow, not just out, but up. Architects looked at the clouds and said, "Let us build there." The first skyscrapers rose up in New York and Chicago. The Empire State Building stands on a massive concrete foundation. But it wasn't just buildings. We needed energy. In the 1930s, America built the Hoover Dam. Imagine a wall of concrete so big it can hold back a whole river. The Hoover Dam used so much concrete that you could build a road from San Francisco to New York City with it. It was a masterpiece of engineering. Then came the cars. Millions of cars needed smooth roads. Bridges connected islands. The Sydney Opera House showed concrete could be beautiful and artistic. Concrete allowed us to rebuild Europe after the wars. It allowed developing countries to build schools. By the end of the 20th century, we lived in a concrete world. It protected us. It carried our water. But my friends, every story has a challenge. We started to see the cost of our success. Concrete is a miracle material, but it is not perfect. Making cement creates carbon dioxide, CO2. This gas is not good for our planet. It makes the Earth warmer. Because we use so much concrete, it creates a lot of this gas. Scientists today are looking for new solutions. They want to make green concrete. They are trying to make concrete that is friendly to nature. Imagine self-healing concrete. Concrete with special bacteria inside it. If the concrete cracks, the bacteria wake up. They eat, and they produce limestone to fill the crack. The building heals itself, just like your skin heals after a cut. We are also seeing 3D printed concrete. Giant robots squeeze out layers of concrete to build a house. It is fast, and it wastes less material. The story of concrete is not finished. From the dust of volcanoes in Rome to the futuristic labs of today, concrete has been our partner. It reflects who we are. It shows our desire to build, to protect, and to leave a mark. Next time you walk on a sidewalk or touch the wall of your home, pause for a moment. Remember the Egyptians, the Romans, the bricklayer, the gardener. You are not just touching a cold, gray rock. You are touching history. You are touching the liquid stone that built our world.